Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod with Andrew Ashurst. He is the creator slash founder at Wine Aspects. We're going to talk about wine and going to talk about Andrew's creative background as a founder, as a guy living in Spain, originally from the UK. And it's going to be fun. This podcast brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start scale or be invited to podcasts like this one, get sponsors to your pod, or even be invited to other pods, we can help you do that. Podpire is my podcasting agency, and I mean, I get 100 plus meetings a week. It's quite extensive. Not saying it should be the same for you, but that's the extent at which this system can scale. Heck, I am going for the 1K mark pretty soon on a weekly basis. That's pretty crazy, right? So podpire.com, if you want to start a podcast to generate leads, learn from people, grow a community, and get clients. Podpire.com. Andrew, welcome to the pod. Can you tell me a bit more about yourself and about your company, Wine Aspects?
Hello, Charles. Yes, we are basically fundamentally an English academy. We started in 2003, and in 2009 we redirected our courses to a niche market, which is English for the world of wine. And we teach people how to speak English and how to present their products, mainly with a marketing slant on things, because we also like marketing. And we changed our direction from just general English to niche English and teaching people about wine, el vino, which is a lovely thing. It connects a lot of people. And that's mainly what we did. It was really good. It's been a good journey at the moment.
Who do you target, and with what product precisely? How much you charge?
We go very into depth with our marketing strategy. We really go into our buyer persona. We analyze to see what type of person is going to buy our course, because it is a niche market. Therefore, we have to delve into everyone's background and see what their main problems are. Our main buyer are sommeliers, oenologists, tour guides that do not have an extremely high level of English, and they need to feel more confident. So we can go into their problems, we can analyze their fears, and therefore we know, because I've been here for many years and I know what they're feeling. So therefore, because I know what they're feeling, we can give them a better product. And we base our courses on four main pillars, which are obviously there's a linguistic pillar, there is a wine knowledge based pillar, there is an organoleptic pillar, which is obviously tasting and going into practical areas, and then obviously there is the communicative skills pillar. So we try to cover these four pillars when we are aiming to look for our ideal client.
All right, then what do you offer precisely to those clients? Why are you different than other companies in the same niche?
If you go into general English, they're just going to look for vocabulary, grammar, and language-based products. If you go to a language coach or a coach that is going to teach you about presentations, they're going to go into the communicative side. If you go towards another slant, which is the wine-based courses that there are lots about, because this is one of our main questions at the beginning when we started this in 2009. I have a student and I asked him, like, okay, Xavi, is there an English course about the world of wine? He said, not really, but if you want to do it, you're going to have to start to study, because they're going to try and catch you out. So therefore, we go into the wine knowledge base. And then, obviously, we're looking at the tasting side. So this is what really sets us apart from everyone else. We have four basic pillars, the ones that I've explained before. But at the end of the day, you can go into one area, another area, another area. You'll find them all individually separated. but you don't find them together. And all this has been literally because we've analyzed, we've asked students for feedback since we began the academy, the English Academy. We always ask for feedback, direct feedback. So in other words, we without even knowing it, we were getting customer feedback and we were getting marketing intelligence at zero cost, which enabled us to improve and improve and improve and adapt and improve, etc., etc. So that's mainly what we do, and that's why we're different.
So how many words are there to describe wines?
Words to describe wines. How many words? Well, exact numbers, I don't know. All I'm going to tell you is that, for example, to make a wine, a master of wine actually said there are more than 3,000 different processes that a winemaker has to go through. So, taking that into account, if there are so many processes, probably you could times that by 20, I would say. And therefore, 20 or even more when it comes to linguistic areas, because languages are they adapt more to society and they obviously change. So therefore, words to describe a wine, I wouldn't know.
And do you only do wines, or you do
No.
more than wines and
Yep, we do
whiskeys
more than
and
wine. Yep, we do wine. Obviously, that's our main area. And we also teach sommeliers when it comes to service in restaurants. We also have courses which are, for example, English for cheese lovers, English for chocolate lovers, English for gin lovers. So as soon as you enter a niche that are talking about different food types or alcohols or liquids, or even like you could do anything, but you've got to delve into the actual process and analyze and go to very, very, very good top resources when you're trying to create this type of material. You just can't go to ChatGPT and say, I want to create a course, because it's not going to work at the moment. Maybe in the future we will see.
I just ordered a Macallan 20-year yesterday. Is that a good whiskey choice?
I'm not a big, actually, I'm not a big whiskey drinker. Never have been, never. At the moment, I don't drink whiskey. Macallan 20 sounds good.
12, yeah, 20. I mean,
12,
that's
sorry.
that would be a $600 bottle, I think.
So when you're talking about price is what the consumer will pay, and it's what the company have put into it at a marketing level. When it comes to wine, there's a very, very good top company here in Spain that always said that the maximum productive costs, the maximum you could pay for a bottle of wine is 60 euros. But when it comes to marketing costs, you can just start adding it on. Depends on what you want to get out of it. You can create and generate events. You can obviously bring in top professionals to do tastings. You can do so much to try and generate an ambience or an environment around that liquid, around that alcohol, around that wine. So therefore, it will take the price up and up. Also, you're talking about exclusivity when you're talking about premium prices. So it just doesn't depend on the liquid itself. It also depends on how exclusive it is and how much that person wants it.
I almost bought a Japanese one, and it's funny because I asked Google Bard what are the best whiskeys in the world, and it's so woke that it won't even tell me. He's like, I won't assist you with that. I think Google thinks alcohol is bad, apparently.
Yeah. At the moment, there's a big problem with alcohol in general, especially with wine at the moment as well. Even in old world, countries. Old world is obviously Europe, and new world is when we're talking about South Africa, America, North America, South America, etc. So at the moment, wine is not going through its best moment when it comes to publicity and regarding alcohol.
Why?
You can go back centuries and centuries, and wine has always been at the table, but for some reason at the moment, it's not going through its best moment, and alcohol isn't neither. You can see that in consumption levels. Consumption is going down.
Well,
Per
in
capita.
COVID, it skyrocketed, right?
Yep, it did when it came to supermarkets. Yes, but then
Or
again, obviously,
DoorDash.
restaurants it didn't. So therefore it went down. People are paying more but drinking less because they want more quality than not so much quantity.
And I
So
never
it
really
go,
understood why people like pay triple for a bottle in Canada at the restaurant rather than in person. Is it like a social hierarchy sign? You know, like I'm rich and I can afford
no,
no?
I think it's a number of different things. You've got to remember that there are a lot of costs behind logistic costs behind having a top bottle in a restaurant. So, and you've got to pay obviously for the service. You've got to pay for the mentorship at that moment as well, because you have probably a sommelier serving you at the correct temperature with the correct glass at the correct moment, etc. So it's a little bit like the fable or the explanation of there's a car parked, or there's a car that's broken down and a mechanic stops, and the guy says to the mechanic, "Can you fix it?" And he says, "Yeah, not a problem. Just give me a screwdriver." And he gives him a screwdriver, and he looks at the bonnet, and he looks at the engine, and all he does is just one turn on one screw, and he says, "Right, come on, rev it up." And he revs it up, and it starts working. And the guy says, "Oh, how much is it?" He says, $600. He says, "Wow, that's a bit expensive, isn't it? You've only been here for 3 minutes." He said, "Yeah, but I knew which screw to turn." So therefore, you're paying for professionalism. You're not just paying for a bottle. If you just want a bottle, go to a supermarket, not a problem, or go to a specialist shop. But if you want to go to a specialist shop, you're going to have better bottles, and because people are going to explain them, and they're going to give you a context. So it's not just about tripling the price. Triple may be a bit too much, but there's a lot more to it than just the price.
Yeah, but at the restaurant, it's the same wine that you buy, right?
Yep,
For
yep, same
three
wine.
times more. So
Mm.
never really understood that. So okay, now when it comes to quality alcohol, there's been a bunch of studies, you know, that they packed in normal or crappy wine and put a fancy label on it. So
Mm-hmm.
what about the placebo effect and how to avoid that placebo effect? Because I'd like a topic I like to talk about normally in the biohacking world is, yeah, how it tastes, you know, and not only the first sip, but like the full bottle. How does it go and how does it run? But also the effect it has on you. You know, do you have a headache right after or the day after? Like, should people measure in terms of that? What is the definition of a high quality bottle?
Mm. Quality at the end of the day is something that is subjective. It's subjective depending on what you've tasted before. I've done tests with sommeliers, with high trained sommeliers, and I have a white wine, and then I take that white wine and I add pigmentation to it, which is a food-based pigmentation that doesn't add any organoleptic features to the wine. They give me one description of a white wine, and then they completely change it and they give me a red wine description on paper. It's actually part of one of our exercises. Then I tell them that they're both the same wine, just with coloring agents. They flip out because it brings them back down to reality. Because marketing and what you see, feel, smell, touch, and everything around you affects your mental state, and it can affect your quality barrier, and you can think it's better or worse. So at the end of the day, quality is completely subjective to the person, but also to the moment, to the place, etc., etc., temperature. So many different factors. So many different factors. It's incredible. I don't think you'd have to have a complete podcast just about that, really.
And when it comes you teaching, let's say, to CEOs or executives how to identify these palettes better, it amplifies this experience, it amplifies the quality of a bottle, correct?
Yeah, definitely. If you can, this is when we try to make our trainings as transversal as possible. What does that mean? That means, obviously, yes, we're concentrating on the linguistic side, but also we bring in historical context, cultural context, and we also bring in organoleptic context. We also bring in marketing context, which is extremely important. Because what a lot of people think, and especially here in Spain, we've got there's a big void for marketing material, and that is that I've got a good wine, and it's going to sell. No, it's not. If you don't explain it properly, you're not going to sell that wine. So it's definitely important to teach not only CEOs, teach everybody the different levels in a tasting or an English class or whatever, but so they can get their idea across and communicate their products in a specific way.
So if I'm broke and I buy a shitty bottle at the supermarket, will I be able to better describe the sulfite taste?
Depends where you live in. If you buy how much are we talking about?
I don't know what's the percentage of sulfites in bottles,
For example, sulfites in Europe, and sulfite in Europe, and for example, natural wines in Europe and natural wines in the US have different connotations. Sulfur units have also been given a lot of bad press. I'm definitely not a scientist, and I'm definitely not going to go into the background and everything, because I really don't want to get caught out. But what I've read and what I've studied is that sulfur is used as an antiseptic. It's used to stop fermentations. It's not all bad press. What usually gives you headaches are usually the histamines and not the sulfites, because a lot of people talk to you and say, I've got a headache, it must have been the sulfites. And there are more sulfites in dried fruits or bagged dried fruits. And I'm not just talking a little bit, I'm talking about a bloody lot. There are a lot more sulfites in dried fruits, for example, raisins or dried bananas or these, that you can find, than actually in a bottle of wine. So again, is there a case of wine being demonized? Because at the end of the day, sulfites, and if I'm not mistaken, which I don't think I am, but if anyone's listening and says you don't know what you're talking about, the sulfites are the E220, 221, 222, up to 229, I think. As I said, these sulfites, these preservatives are everywhere. So it's not just about wine. I think we just can't go and say, oh, I've got a headache because of sulfites. I know. There are, and as I said before, when you said, if I go in and buy a cheap bottle of wine, I just bought this fantastic bottle of wine. I don't think you can see it. It's called Vinomi. I just bought it for €9. €9 is very cheap. It's a minimum interventional wine. So in other words, they try to keep sulfites very, very low. Depends on where you are. Depends if you're in the US, depends if you're in the UK, it depends if you're in Spain. In Spain, wines are quite cheap. We're bloody lucky here because we got good wines at cheap prices.
Interesting. So basically, if I can try to sell your service, you teach vocabulary in the wine world to people so that they can better enjoy a wine, because words are neurons, they're pathways in the brain, and you create these new paths that they can explore and fire anytime that they have a glass of wine that will make them happy with themselves. And also it may impress their friends, it might educate their friends, and that's why they take your courses.
Definitely. That would be a very good explanation. I actually use that as a marketing strategy.
So
Yep.
what are your top 3 goals for this year? There's 3 months remaining. What do you want to accomplish?
Top 3 goals. We are implementing at the moment a new course, which is called the Sommelier's English Toolkit. That is going to be a course that is going to be based on 120 hours, covering all different aspects of sommelier and also English in the wine world. Also for wine guides, so guides from wine tourism. Another aspect is to train my team. I have 2 new people on the team, so therefore we are growing, which is very good. We've been going at it for 15 years. It's not just been a quick walk in the park. 15 years is a long time, and now is the time that we actually have to train people up so they can actually do things and take over. And the third thing I would say, well, at the moment we've got so many things on the table, it's unbelievable. But there's another thing that we are trying to create, because when we teach niche English, we take for granted that people already know a little bit of English. We normally teach people from a B1 level or B2 level, which is a European framework, which would be an intermediate level. So we are at the moment, we're creating an A2 level, which is a elementary level English course, so that people that are interested in wine can generate that motivation and passion about it, then realize that, okay, I've got to study a little bit more English first, and then I can do the other higher courses afterwards. And I know you said 3, but I'm going to give you a 4th one, because as I said, we've got lots of different objectives on the table. We want to push more for international markets, and especially South America, Central and South America. So we're definitely pushing for those markets as well. So as you can see, we're an English academy with a niche market product, but we do analyze and we do really go into depth where we want to go and what we want to do.
Where can people find out more about you, Andrew?
We have a webpage which is called wineaspects.info. We are also on Instagram at wineaspects. We are also on LinkedIn at wineaspects. So, and obviously if they contact the academy here in Spain, not a problem. They'll probably, our team, we try to be as personal as possible. We personalize. So for example, if someone sent us a message on Instagram, I usually answer back myself saying, thanks for connecting. So whatever people need, they can contact us through those. So I'm positively sure they'll be able to find us.
I'm Charles Cormier, your host, founder, wisdompodcast.com. And that was Charles Cormier with Mr. Andrew Ashurst with Wine Aspects. Thank you all.